Hey, hey! Today on Minimalist Gourmet, we're going to be making the most incredible cranberry scones. The texture on these is so tender. They are incredibly light, airy, and fluffy. And we're going to balance out that tart cranberry flavor with a slightly sweet orange glaze. So let's get crack-a-lackin'. We're going to crack out our orange glaze first. This is super simple, yet super delicious. We need to zest our orange. I don't have a zester, so I'll just be using the small side of my grater. Make sure to wash your orange very well before starting. When zesting, make sure to only take the orange part and don't go too deep. This white part here is the pith, and that's going to be bitter, so you want to avoid that. Zest the entire orange and go ahead and set that aside for a minute. We also need the juice from the orange. You can do this by hand if you'd like, just make sure to catch any seeds. To build our glaze, we have our powdered sugar in a bowl. We're going to add in about half of our orange zest, reserve the other half for later. 1 tablespoon of our freshly squeezed orange juice goes in, finished off with 2 tablespoons of heavy cream. Mix this all very well, and you are left with the most delicious orange glaze. And boy, does the citrus smell off this smell fantastic. For the scones, we actually mix the dry and wet ingredients separately, then bring them together later. Our dry ingredients consist of all purpose flour, a nice big scoop of baking powder, a touch of salt, as well as just a little bit of sugar. Mix all your dry ingredients thoroughly and then go ahead and set that aside for just a minute. For the wet team, we're going to combine up our heavy whipping cream, 1 large egg, a bit of vanilla extract, and the other half of our orange zest from earlier. Mix well to combine. All of your wet ingredients should already be nice and cold, and I'm going to go ahead and store it in my fridge after mixing to keep it cold until I need to use it. We need to cut our butter into our dry ingredients, and this is one of my favorite tricks in the world. Let me show you. First thing is you need to freeze your butter solid. Next thing, grab out your grater, and we're going to grate our frozen butter just like you would a block of cheese. You know, what really grates me is when people don't include recipes in their videos. That's why I always include a written recipe in the description below, so definitely go down and check that out. And while you're down there, maybe give us a like, comment, share, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and I always love to hear from you. All of these little frozen butter flakes are going to create that wonderful, flaky, tender texture that we're looking for. Trust me, this works fantastic. It's also great for things like biscuits. Now we need to cut our butter into our dry ingredients. Now, ideally, you would be using a pastry cutter, but the world is less than ideal and I don't have one, so I'll be using a fork. I like to start off by giving everything a mix and coating all the butter with a little bit of flour. That way it doesn't clump together as I press it down. We just spent a lot of time to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, press your fork straight down through the flour and butter mixture until you don't see any large pieces of butter remaining. You should end up with something that looks a little bit like cornmeal with some small bits of butter mixed in. When you're done, it should look like this. You should be able to press it together and form a solid piece, but it crumbles away very easily. You will see some little bits of butter throughout, and that is totally fine. I pulled my nice cold, wet ingredients out of the fridge, and I'm going to pour them right on top of my dry ingredients. Now I need to mix this together, but do not overwork this mixture because if we do, it'll be tough and chewy, and that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for soft and tender. So we're going to mix this until it just barely comes together. There's going to be a little bit of flour in the bottom of the bowl. That's fine. This is where we're going to stop mixing. Spread a fairly generous layer of all-purpose flour over your work surface so nothing sticks, and then we're going to turn our dough out right on top. Now at first, this is going to look very, very shaggy and not even like a dough almost. That's okay. We need to start by just pressing this together into a nice ball. Now we're going to do the press and fold method where we just press this out into a disc, fold it over on itself, turn it a little bit, fold it out on itself, press it out, and repeat this process about 8 to 10 times. Use a little bit more flour if things start to stick. As the dough comes together, every time we press and fold, we are creating tons of layers with that butter and flour mixture, which is going to create that wonderful flaky texture that we're looking for. And as soon as the dough comes together, we're going to press it out one final time so we can add in our cranberries. You can certainly use fresh if you'd like, but I actually prefer frozen cranberries. They don't crush as easily and they don't tend to bleed into the dough as much. The cranberries we have here in Thailand are actually imported from China and they are so much smaller than the ones I'm used to growing up in the Pacific Northwest. Evenly pour your cranberries over the top and gently press them down into the dough. And then we're just going to repeat what we did before here by folding this a few times. You don't need to work the dough anymore. We're just trying to distribute the cranberries evenly. Why did the scone get married? Well, he found his butter half. It took me about 3 folds or so to get the cranberries pretty well distributed, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to stop here. Now I'm going to lay down some more flour because I'm going to cut these and I don't want anything to stick to my counter. Before we cut them, we're going to form this into a disc that's about 10 inches in diameter and about 1 inch thick. Try to make it nice and level on top, that way it's all the same thickness and everything will finish in the oven at the same time. Now just use a sharp knife to make 4 cuts from side to side, making 8 total pieces. I have my baking tray lined with a bit of parchment paper and we're going to load these bad boys up. Do remember when you put them out on the tray, you want to leave a decent amount of space between each of them because they do blow up quite a bit in the oven. This next step is totally optional, but it's going to help achieve that beautiful golden brown top. Just spread a little bit of heavy whipping cream using a pastry brush or the back of a spoon over the top, and you are ready to go. Put these into a preheated 425-degree oven for about 12 to 15 minutes. I let mine bake for about 14-15 minutes, and this is how they looked. As I said, they do expand quite a bit in the oven, so if you have a bigger tray, definitely use it. You can already tell just by looking at these, they are going to be so soft and fluffy inside. Not to mention that you have that sweet cream and cranberry flavor combining in the kitchen right now to make it smell delicious. These are fresh out of the oven and rocket hot. You don't want them to overbake, so we're going to transfer them to a cooling rack. I don't actually have a cooling rack, so I just pull the oven rack out of my toaster oven and let them cool on there. You definitely want to let these cool completely to room temperature before trying to glaze them, otherwise that glaze will just melt right off. Once it's down to room temperature, we can start glazing. Some people like to take their scones and just turn them upside down and dip the entire top into the glaze, but personally, I like to drizzle it on top using a spoon. After applying, let your scones sit at room temperature for about 15 or 20 minutes, and that glaze will set up nicely. Man, these are so delicious. One minute they're here, the next minute they're gone. All right, guys, I can't wait any longer. I gotta tear into one of these bad boys. Let's get to tasting. Before we even taste, I gotta say that smell of the citrus combined with that fresh baked good is phenomenal. The texture is out of this world. It is so light, airy, fluffy, and crumbly. I mean, just look at this. Plus, the butter and heavy cream really make this a very moist cake. This is going to be so decadent. The tart cranberries combined with the subtly sweet orange glaze really work to balance each other perfectly. They are one heck of a flavor combo. The cream and butter are nice and rich, and they're a little heavy, which is great because it's balanced out with that nice, fresh, natural flavor of the cranberries and the orange. These scones really hit on every level and are one of my wife's favorite things that I make. I know they're going to be one of yours as well. And since you like this video so much and watched until the end, I'd like to recommend my no-bake key lime pie video right here. It also combines rich and creamy with light and citrusy, just like this. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I hope to see you all here next time on the next episode of Minimalist Gourmet.